Good evening. I'm Perry Schumacher. Welcome to Open Range. As my guest tonight, we have Dustin Gavrilow of Bismarck. Dustin, it's been a few months. How you been?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good, Perry. How about yourself?
Not bad. Keeping busy. Did you enjoy your holiday?
Sure did. Yep.
We're going to have Dustin wear his political analyst hat tonight, as I've got a series of questions. We're going to go around the country and talk about different situations. Dustin, we're first going to start with last week I left off with my perspective talking about the socialists that are infiltrating the Democrat Party. I think there's more of them than publicly are known. Some people just don't want the label necessarily yet. I think that'll come. How do you feel? Do you think this is a small part of the Democrat Party, or is it? Can they keep these monsters under the bed, so to speak?
Well, I think that the socialist or democratic socialist movement in the Democratic Party is kind of their version of our Tea Party was. Frankly, and this is half sarcastic, half serious. I prefer my socialists to be honest about being socialist rather than lying about it. So I'm actually kind of inclined to think that if they are able to get elected calling themselves socialists, being clear about the socialism that they're bringing, that is actually a better scenario for conservatives to deal with, because at least we are negotiating on an honest level. We know what they're about. They're honest about what they're about. They're not hiding their agendas. So, I look at this as a glass half full type of situation, because our biggest problem is that we have, on the Democratic side, there's a lot of Democrats that espouse those views and truly believe those things, but they hide the fact that is where they really are. And, we're also seeing a lot of situations in the last year, let's say, where the horseshoe theory is really coming to fruition on a actionable level, where the left and the right, the far left and the far right, are working together on certain things where they can agree, and they might be coming from a different angle and a different reason, but they're able to work together. You look at in Congress, the only things that are really happening are when Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna get together and do something. So, there's upside to this, and so I would take the honesty side of it as a positive. It's definitely a problem that is the direction that the country is going, but you gotta deal with what the people are telling you, right?
It's a good point that you make, that at least they're being upfront and honest about it, no more hiding. And I think more and more time goes along, Democrats are showing their true colors, right? Men can have babies, things like that. I mean, DEI, intersectionality, this stuff is all over the place. It's not going away. Go to one of their conferences and watch them try to introduce people and go through all the pronouns, and it gets to be a problem. It delays progress. But are you as optimistic that they can control them, or is this going to be a problem for 8 years? I think somebody will, in 2028, will run as a Democrat socialist for president.
I guess the question is, do we really want them to be controlled by the dishonest factions in their own party? The people that are just there for power's sake, and this applies to people in both parties. If you're just there to be in power and not do anything with the power other than lord it over the citizens, that's not what either side should really want. Ultimately, I think that this is part of the realignment of the American political spectrum. If the Democratic Party ends up being taken over, in quotes, by these Democratic Socialists, that's going to create a push for the more moderate Democrats to probably team up with the more liberal Republicans and converge in their way, while the conservatives are doing the same thing on the Republican side of pushing the Republican Party a different way. This very likely could be a path to a multi-party system. And I've always said, we're probably going to leapfrog from being a two-party system directly to being a five-party system and skip over 3 and 4 very quickly.
There used to be a thing like Reagan Democrats. You're a political college graduate. So maybe there's a realignment there where some of these people are they're going to see, well, these squishy Republicans are much more normal than what I see to my left. So that's where I'm going to find home. The other point is, so they take power. Let's say so socialists become the norm in the Democrat Party. They are not going to sit around and keep these institutions as is. They're going to break every norm that ever was agreed upon between the two parties that currently are, like the filibuster, things like that. They have no problem breaking glass. You agree?
Well, yeah, but right now, who's the one trying to break the filibuster? It's Donald Trump. You know, all the norms are already being broken. Our side.
Well, he's doing that because he knows it's going to happen with the other group. I mean, they're going to do it, and they're going to attempt to add to the Supreme Court. If they let these nut jobs in, they certainly will, won't they?
Well, I mean, I've been hearing from our side talking about packing the Supreme Court now because they don't like the decisions that are being made by the Trump appointees in the recent weeks. I think we'll get into that later on in the show.
Yeah, we're going to get into that later.
But I think that, you know, both sides, you know, this is an interesting scenario because both sides have their grievances, and they're kind of the same grievances, just in different directions. And ultimately, this is going to shake out in a different way than it has historically, I think. Historically, things converge into the two big tent model, right? I think that we're getting to the point where the tents are, you know, this tent's too big for the both of us scenario on both sides of the aisle. And ultimately, that is going to reconfigure and realign the political spectrum in America because, you know, part of the reason that we have a duopoly two-party system is because we're not a parliamentary system that can allow for minor parties to coalition together very effectively. But that's simply because the two parties know that if either one of them splits, they're in a permanent minority. If both split at the same time, then there's more of an equal playing field. There's less push against the concept of a multi-party system. And ultimately, we could see a product where the parties are more aligned with people's values and people are it's less necessary for people to plug their nose and just deal with things that they don't like in their party.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but is Fetterman one of the last few remaining normal Democrats that could potentially be a party leader, or maybe Shapiro in Pennsylvania? Do you know of anybody else? I mean, that has the gravitas. I mean, you got the bald guy in Delaware there. I can't think of his name, but he doesn't have it. I mean, where's a normal Democrat that carries any weight across the country?
Well, you know, I think it's fascinating that Republicans are looking to Fetterman as the pinnacle of normal Democrats. When he first got elected, Republicans were basically saying that he was brain damaged from having strokes. And so the question is, so your view of a normal Democrat is somebody that you called brain damaged. Like, that doesn't even make any sense.
Well, doesn't that just show how nuts the left has went? I mean,
well,
I take the opposite side of you. It just shows how far they've went off the bridge, that he's now the norm. Now, he did have brain damage when he ran. He may have recovered by now, but the man could hardly speak when he ran. There's no denying that. He could hardly get out a sentence.
I think this is all part of the race to the bottom. And like there's a lack of high thinking when it comes to this stuff. It's just adding to the tribalistic approach that is going on both sides.
You're not talking about me, are you?
What's that?
You're not talking about me, are you?
No. I'm talking about the way that the Republican Party and conservatives only see. This is what's fascinating. When a Democrat goes against their party, Republicans and conservatives like it. But when that Democrat flips to being a Republican, adds to their numbers, adds to their majority, all of a sudden that's a rhino. And they don't like that. So they only like the Democrat that's against Democrats as long as he's still a Democrat. And ultimately, that is how we got to the point where the moderate Democrats end up running as Republicans to get elected because they're more interested in getting elected than actually doing anything with the office that they were elected into, because the popularity is what drives them. And so, this is part of how you get rhinos, is if the market, the Republican and conservative market, is promoting certain type of Democrat to the top, and they get pushed out of being in the mainstream of the Democratic Party, well, you've just created a rhino.
Do you see what happened with, I guess to sum it up, we get an unserious country gets an unserious government or leaders, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get what you deserve, and that's what we demand. I'm going to make the point a little later. You see this with Plantner now. He's getting Swalwelled in Maine because he's fallen behind in the polls, and now they have no need for him. You know what I mean? Where they should have not had any need for him at all in the beginning, because he's a man with a Nazi tattoo in the Democrat Party. It's mind-boggling. We're going to be back with Dustin, segment 2. We got to go to a commercial. We got more deep discussions to get into. We'll hear what Dustin has to say.
Stop out to our facility, Highway 22 South. Let us build a truck for you.
Find relief for what ails you at Steep Me Tea Apothecary. Teas, supplements, tinctures, and more. Formulated to fight whatever has you down. We're Bismarck Mandan's favorite place to find delicious, natural, and easy ways to alleviate symptoms brought on by anything from colds to cancer. Brew a better you at Steep Me Tea Apothecary. Steep Me products may cause side effects, including but not limited to improved mood, deeper sleep, enhanced hydration, renewed sense of smell, increased energy levels, superior balance, boosted immunity, proper digestion, restored sense of calm, and a delightful smelling home.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza.
Welcome to Radiant Retreat Tanning and Spa in Mandan, where a relaxing spa experience meets the latest in healing innovations. Take total control of your massage in our Hydro Massage Bed. Experience whole body healing in our Zero Body Cryo Bed. Let our Salt Sauna and Halo Generator restore your respiratory and skin health. And of course, tailored tanning will keep you looking as good as you feel. Discover your best self at Radiant Retreat, 1307 1st Street Northeast, Mandan.
Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm Perry Schumacher from West Fargo. We've got Bismarck's Dustin Gavrilow with us tonight. Dustin, on to topic 2. In case the public is unaware, I want to review what happened in South Dakota a week ago, okay? And we'll get your opinion. There was an uproar in our neighboring state. Conservative activist Scott Pressler attempted to attend a South Dakota Republican dinner where Majority Leader John Thune was attending. Even though he had a ticket for the dinner, he was not allowed to enter. Scott is trying to put pressure on Thune to pass the SAVE Act and has said he will work to primary John Thune. Before you say who is Scott Pressler, he's a soft-spoken grassroots conservative who has been successful in Republican voter registration and get out the vote efforts. Pretty harmless in my side viewpoint. He was a major factor with Trump winning the state of Pennsylvania. So my questions for you, Dustin, are you familiar with Scott Pressler? Let's start there.
Vaguely. I had seen some videos of him disrupting meetings and trying to put people on the spot over the last few months. When this thing went down in South Dakota, he ended up on a lot of people's radar because that's his strategy, is to become known for being confrontational.
Well, he started out as the guy that helped clean up Baltimore back when Baltimore, this might have been even before Trump, Obama might have been president. And he created a group of people that went around and cleaned up areas of Baltimore because the garbage and things like that was so disgusting. Then he moved on to political activism where, like I said, he's been registering people to vote. And he actually turned the amount of registered people in Pennsylvania to the Republicans' favor the last couple election cycles. So I see him as a pretty harmless thing. The sergeant at arms in South Dakota was fired for the way he handled Pressler at the Republican dinner. Pressler received an apology from the South Dakota GOP chairman. Thune had a resolution of censorship brought against him that eventually failed. Dustin, are establishment Republicans in North Dakota and South Dakota two sides of the same coin?
Well, I think that it's important to know that it was the conservatives who took over the South Dakota Republican Party in the last 2 years. It was all part of the uprising against the Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline. As you know, in South Dakota, that had a bigger factor in their politics than it did in ours, unfortunately. Back in 2024, I went down to South Dakota and did some consulting work with the South Dakota Freedom Caucus to promote that issue and a couple others. The people that are in control of the South Dakota Republican Party are the conservative Freedom Caucus types now. And so I believe that my understanding of what happened down there is that the conservatives believed that this fellow, Scott Pressler, was going to infiltrate their dinner to try to make a scene against John Thune. And they didn't want that to happen any more than North Dakota Republicans wanted Rob Port to be at their meeting. Remember, Rob Port had a ticket to the convention here and they kept him out. So it sounds to me like the conservatives who take over the Republican Party are very into the idea of keeping certain people out. And so I think that if somebody looks at that situation in South Dakota and thinks that it was an establishment that did it, no, that was the conservatives keeping people out, just like conservatives kept Rob Port out in North Dakota.
Well, me and you live in two different worlds, and because that's not how I understand the process. So you think that Sergeant at Arms was a conservative trying to keep, and then they later apologized to Thune for keeping him out. So somehow you wrap your head around that, and you think that that's conservatives doing that rather than Thune's people.
Well, so the chairman of the South Dakota Republican Party is a guy named Jim Estebaum, who is a former Democrat. You know, he'll admit that. He was a Democrat until 2016. He was involved in the Property Owners Alliance that pushed back against the Summit Carbon Solutions issue, as well as, you know, they had their referral against the establishment's bill to make it easier for the carbon pipeline to go through South Dakota. The citizens rose up and pushed back against that and successfully defeated it. And Jim was one of the people that helped lead the charge on that. He was the chairman of the committee, actually. And so they took over the South Dakota Republican Party. And from what I've seen, there was a flyer that was given to the Sergeant of Arms to keep an eye out for this Scott Pressler fellow. And so I would tend to believe that they wanted their convention to not be about one person who is from out of state, running around, trying to cause trouble for John Thune.
Why would they censor Thune then?
Well, they didn't.
They attempted to. They got it and then they had to take it to the entire Republican caucus. That's where it failed. But it failed or it succeeded in committee, if that's the right word. Why would they censor Thune if they were for Thune? And against against keeping Pressler out of the meeting? Why would they censor Thune for keeping Pressler?
Well, censure is not necessarily being for or against someone. It's just saying that you don't like what they did on a particular thing. My understanding was that it was a very specific thing.
They were censoring them for the SAVE Act, not passing the SAVE Act.
Well, you know what? Half of the Republicans in the Senate are against that. That's why it's not going anywhere. That's why they're playing games to try to tack it onto the NDAA. You know, tacking an issue like that onto other legislation is something conservatives used to be against. So if you have to be sneaky about passing it, that indicates to me that it's not a good bill.
Okay, let's move on to we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Why do establishment types, now, like I said, this Pressler, I know him quite well because I follow him. He's as timid as a mouse. He's the anti-me. There is nothing intimidating about Scott Pressler other than his height. Why would they have to keep him out of? They do more harm by keeping him out of the dinner than letting him in.
I think that that's the same belief that people had when the North Dakota Republican Party kept Rob Port out of the convention. I mean, if your goal is to, like you say the word censor when it's censure, and those are two different things.
Yes. Yes.
What they're doing is censor. So you want the party to censure one person and not censor another. But yet the conservatives are right now big about censoring people that are not on their side because they don't like what that person has to say. You know, so the reason the North Dakota Republican Party kept Rob Port out of the convention was because they didn't want to deal with the negative press that he was bound to write about them, right? So
he was going to, and the funny thing is he'll write negative press regardless of it, whether it's in the
Right. So all they did was added fuel to the fire, gave them more ammunition, made themselves look like the bad guy, and you know. So I would argue that it was probably not a good idea to try to keep this guy out. You know, if he caused a problem and created a confrontation at a sit-down formal dinner, then he could have been removed after he did the deed. But you know, we're getting into kind of like a Minority Report pre-crime thing where conservatives are opposed to people doing bad things, so they don't want them to be involved. And that's a bad road to go down as a movement.
I think we need to qualify that and say some conservatives. I'll take the fight any day of the week. You can have Rob Port sitting next to me any day of the week. I'm fine with it. Mitch McConnell, let me segue to him. So elitism, right? The man's been sick for supposedly 3 weeks. I guess he was unconscious or something like that. But don't you think a citizenship, especially when it's a United States senator, has the right to hear from somebody if the person's doing all right, if it's been 3 weeks to a month?
Absolutely, but the Republican Party has never really been about being transparent with what is happening with its membership that way.
I don't care about the Republican Party. I just care about what's right and what's wrong. You know what I mean?
Well, it's going to be up to the people of Kentucky to decide whether they want to hear from the senator or not. I think that they probably believe that maintaining the majority in the Senate and not allowing their Democratic governor to appoint is more important. And so Republicans are going to play those games. You know, the same way that, like, this is obviously karma coming back, right? You know, Mitch McConnell said that Obama can't get a vote on his Supreme Court nominee back in 2015 because the election was coming up, and now they're using the same sort of logistics to prevent a replacement of him to come up, whether or not he needs to be. Now, you know, the sarcastic response would be, what has the Senate done recently that they need him? You know, so like, what's he missing at this point too? But, you know, Republicans are going to keep maintain power whatever way that they need to, and it's strictly a power maneuver.
It's the same way Ruth Bader Ginsburg stuck around long enough, and then ended up being allowing a Republican president to name her replacement. Sometimes things come full circle, and it doesn't work out the way you want it to, right?
Right, absolutely. And as we've seen in history, this keeps getting worse and worse. It happens more and more. We've got these older elected officials, and you're just going to see it more and more.
I've got a solution for that in the next segment. We'll come back with Dustin after the commercials. We get to topic 3. Thank you.
Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Come on in and experience small-town hospitality and the personalized care that makes car buying a pleasure.
We know that every journey starts with the right car. Whether it's school drop-off, weekend road trips, or your daily commute, we have the right vehicle for you and your family.
With trusted brands, affordable prices, and the team that treats you like family, finding your next car has never been so easy.
We pride ourselves on personal attention and quality service. Bassett Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Yeah, U.S. Cattlemen is a member organization that each member has a vote in anything we do with policy. We're representing the independent cattleman or the cow-calf guy or an independent feeder or whatever. We like to support the independent producer. We're talking about mandatory ID, we're talking about cool, we're talking about all the legislation that's going to be coming down with the new administration. There's going to be lots of moving and shaking. So always check us out at our website, uscattleman.org.
We're talking to people today about investments. Let's see if we can get somebody. Excuse me, sir. Do you have a retirement account?
I do. I'm invested in some annuities.
Fixed income? How is that?
It was better a few years ago. Each year, it buys less and less, barely keeping up.
That's where gold can make a difference. Unlike fixed payouts, gold rises with inflation, so you're not stuck with a low fixed payment.
So gold isn't stuck in the past like my annuity?
Don't let inflation erode your retirement savings. Invest in gold. Invest with Noble Gold Investments.
I'm $27,000 in credit card debt.
Okay.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Now's not the time to be doing math. The time to be doing math was when we didn't go into $200,000 of debt.
If you are freaked out and you're stuck in these debt payments and you think it has to be a part of your life, it doesn't.
We are ladies of another view. Join us every weekday morning at 9 o'clock a.m. as we discuss the big topics from North Dakota, the nation, and around the world.
We chat with everyone from celebrities and medical professionals to politicians, local business owners, and neighbors about the topics and stories that affect all of us.
We are unscripted and uncensored real news from real people. So join us every weekday morning for Ladies of Another View on BEK.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm Perry Schumacher. I've got my friend Dustin Gavrilow in tonight with us. Dustin, we're on to 3. We'll segue because we were talking in the last segment about Mitch McConnell and maybe hanging on to office too long. So there's a Louisiana Senator, Bill Cassidy. He recently took 3rd place in the Louisiana Senate primary, getting only 25% of the vote. One of the lowest votes ever for an incumbent multi-term senator. So he's now out in January. He's going to be gone. Like the Lion in the Wizard of Oz, though, he suddenly got courage. He announced he's going to be bringing a bill to the Senate floor to save Social Security. Senator Cassidy's been freed from the bondage of incumbency, Dustin. He can now boldly lead because of this freedom. Isn't that a coincidence?
Well, let's remember that the reason that he lost his primary was because he was not in lockstep with Donald Trump on certain issues. And so he got punished for trying to stand out. And when other legislative people, senators and congressmen, see their fellow officials be punished for stepping out of line against the president, they're not going to do it until there's nothing left to lose. And that's always the way it's been. In history, usually it was the party leader in the body, like the Senate, who they tried to stay in line with. Now it's the president. And so I think it is sending very mixed messages to say that we don't want you to be in office anymore because you won't be in lockstep. And now that you got nothing left to lose, we're going to say that you're only now having a spine to step out of line, because the Republican Party has no interest right now in fixing Social Security. They want to leave this time bomb, which is going to blow up in 2032, based off of existing law. If nothing happens in Congress, benefits on Social Security for recipients are going to get cut by 30% automatically. And so the Republicans definitely do not want to be in power when that happens. They want Democrats to be holding that bag because they want to be able to use that against them. So you're not going to see anything significant happen on that issue for the next 6 years. You're going to see Republicans basically punt on anything of significance that would cause them to be blamed for anything. And ultimately, I think that if this happens, if Congress does not do something on this particular issue, and people see their Social Security benefits cut by 30%, not only are you going to have a massive economic problem because you're going to have elderly people that can't pay their rent or can't buy food, but I think it's going to open up the door for UBI, Universal Basic Income, where the Democrats are going to say, you left this time bomb for us to take care of. Now the Democratic Socialists are running our party. It's time for UBI.
That'd be scary. Now, if you talk to Elon Musk, he'll say, if we let AI run everything, everything's going to be so darn efficient that we can just pay people incomes. Dreamland as far, but Musk is a lot smarter than me. Oh, let's go back to this now. So I think it's the penicillin to our problem. It's something we've never tried. Term limits. Then if term limits were for Congress and for senators, it wouldn't matter whether you're with your president or not, because you have a certain shelf life, and you could lead. You can lead. I think they don't lead because they want to extend their career. It's better to play it safe. They'll lead if the president wants to take them a certain direction on the big beautiful bill. They're certainly willing to go there, but they're not going to step out on their own, because it's always about winning the next. 6 months after they're elected, they're already worried about the next election. You know what I mean? I think would it be our antibiotic just to try this? We're trying it in North Dakota. We've never tried it in the United States federal government, and we see how well things are going. Maybe it is the solution.
Well, you're going to have to amend the Constitution.
Yeah. Good luck.
And and to get term limits in, you're going to have to use the Article 5 bottom-up approach rather than the top-down approach, because obviously Congress and the U.S. Senate are not going to impose term limits on themselves unless it's individually, and that's their principle. And half the time when they run on that themselves, they don't actually follow through on it. North Dakota saw that with Kent Conrad decades ago. Yeah. And so, you know, you can look at the cases where our elected officials do step out of line. Thomas Massey, You know, he doesn't follow a party line. He doesn't follow the Trump line. And what does it get him? And so elected officials are very Pavlovian. I think you've talked about this before, that the result of their action when they step out of line, whatever that line may be, is to get hit over the head. And so why would anybody believe that they're going to do anything that resembles leadership if the only thing that's going to result from that is their leadership taking them out?
And that could be the Senate Majority Leader, the House Leader, right? I mean, it can happen. It doesn't just have to happen from the president. Right. That's why I think if they were freed with term limits, it's a pipe dream. It'll never happen. But it's something that's never been tried, and I think that is the solution. It's just my point of view. I want to go to topic 4 here. The Supreme Court a week ago had a couple rulings. I'm going to get to that in Perry's perspective. But one of them was on temporary protected status. It has been removed for foreign nationals, especially those from Haitians and Syrians, I believe. They've got a lot of Haitians in Ohio. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has asked the Trump administration to reconsider sending thousands of Haitians in his state back to Haiti. Dustin, I realize the Republican Party is now a big tent, but how can one state have a complete simp like Mike DeWine and someone like J.D. Vance on the other side? Talk about a big tent in one state.
Well, I think that this gets into the topic that we've talked about before, as well as I've talked about this with Rick Becker on the show before as well, which is the waves of the Republican Party. Mike DeWine is of the old guard. You know, in 2006, John McCain was pro-amnesty because that was the traditional Republican position in conjunction with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. So that era of Republican joined the party because they were pro-immigrant, because they were pro-cheap labor, right? And so the people that come in, because that's what the Republican Party stood for a long time, regardless of what certain voters believed. That was what the party was about. Those voters voted for the party in spite of that, but those officials still believe that stuff. I mean, it's just like the Republican Party used to be about free markets and free trade, and the people are not on that page. And we're in this transition period where there's really nowhere for a free trade, free market conservative to go anymore. And so we're still stuck with the Republican Party until there's a better alternative. And so when all of these issues, whether it is immigration or voting, you know, this opposition to early voting and no absentee voting, well, which party passed that? It was the Republican Party in 2004. As a response to what happened in Florida 2000. They felt that their voters couldn't figure out the ballot. They wanted to create a mechanism for elderly voters to be able to vote early, to have more time with their ballot, to understand what they were doing. So they created no absentee ballot situations, or no excuse absentee ballot situations with mail-in voting, because that was a Republican attempt to try to rig a game that they were very close to losing in the year 2000. And now people don't even understand their own history. These things were put in place by Republicans in the past. And so it's going to be very difficult to get rid of them because the Republicans are split. The people that were involved back then, remember that these used to be Republican policies. So you're not going to change a lot of minds when that's what they were involved with and that's what they were supportive of.
If I put you on the spot, which kind of guy would you prefer, Mike DeWine or J.D. Vance?
None of the above.
Oh, come on, choose.
No, why are we always put in the false choices? Why can't we have people that are on principle rather than being against each other? Like, just because one person is not the ideal doesn't make the other one a better choice. Like,
yeah, I agree. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray in there. It's not always either or. We like to do either or. I just thought it would make for good television.
Well, here's the other thing is Republicans used to be the party of good governance, right? They were about making sure the system worked in an efficient way. Democrats were the party of activism and making the government promote certain agendas. And now, when it benefits them, that has flipped. When the Republican Party is going to have a problem in the near future because the competency is being overrun by the red meat topics. The red meat topics are for you and I to talk about, but we should be asking our elected officials to actually be competent in what they are doing and governing to make sure that these systems, once the people have spoken and once the representatives of people have spoken, actually are managed in the right way. And I think that we're going down a wrong path of inconsistency. Now, I remember during the Obama years, predictable regulations was the #1 thing Republicans supported. The idea of predictable regulations is out the window, and Republicans kicked it out the window.
I think if we go back to those DeWine, Bush years, McCain years, if they'd have told us we're going to ship all the jobs overseas, I know it's going to make things cheaper, but it's going to hollow out every little city that's in the country. I don't think if they'd have been honest, maybe they didn't know that was going to happen, but that was the ending result. Folks, we're going to be back with Perry's perspective after the break, and we'll get Dustin's viewpoint on it. Come back soon.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza. Are you dealing with arthritis, nerve and back pain, dry skin, or superficial wounds, but found no relief? Give Stewart's Natural Health a try. For over 4 decades, Stewart's Natural Health has been helping people and animals with herbal and natural oil lotions, ointments, and creams with a mission to help you relieve pain and feel your best using the power of nature. Discover the safe, drug-free solution to your pain, guaranteed or your money back. Visit stewartsnatural.health today.
We are the St. Mary Sisters. We are building a new facility here in Bismarck, North Dakota, for the sake of training young women to be courageous teachers in this state. The sisters will educate the younger generation to be fully alive through truth and discipline. The sisters' life of devotion and joy will make a positive difference in your community. Check out what we're up to, see what's going on, and join our mission to make a difference in the lives of the children of North Dakota.
Ashley, North Dakota is where life moves a little slower, but never gets dull. From hunting, camping, and fishing to safe streets where kids can be kids, this is the best of small town living. And Ashley offers everything you need, from healthcare to hardware to countless ways to stay active. Here, we've invested in our future with major upgrades to roads, parks, and education. Whether you're here for the day or here for life, you'll find Ashley's where you ought to be.
There's never been a better time to rediscover the style, reliability, and all-season, all-terrain fun of the all-new Nissan lineup at the new and improved Ryan Nissan. Whether it's the sleek and stylish Murano, the adventure-ready Pathfinder, or the reimagined, ready-for-anything 2026 Rogue, the all-new Ryan Nissan has the vehicle of your dreams at a price perfect for any budget. It's time to rediscover your passion for the road. It's time to rediscover the all-new Ryan Nissan, engineered to endure.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm Perry Schumacher. This is the last segment of the evening, and I do a little Perry's perspective, go on a little rant, and then we're going to get Dustin's opinion. Here it comes, Dustin. In the Batman movie, The Dark Knight, the Joker says, "See, madness, as you know, is like gravity. All it takes is a little push." Last week, the Roberts-led Supreme Court delivered a full-on shove, and now gravity, with the help of a neutered Congress, will do the rest. First, they loosened the rules on mail-in ballots, continuing Election Day as some vague multi-day grace period where ballots can trickle in whenever. California for everyone. Then, right on its heels, they reinforced the birthright citizenship in a way that treats American citizenship like a geographic accident, nothing more than being born on a patch of soil, regardless of why your parents were here or what their status was. 2 pushes equals a shove. Chaos is a result of madness, the law of the jungle where man's fallen nature takes over. Once institutions are teetering, it doesn't take much for them to collapse. And instead of steadying the institution, instead of applying basic common sense limits, the court chose to push harder. They have said Election Day means the day, they could have said the Election Day means the day people actually vote, not a rolling window for ballots to show up until you reach the desired outcome. They could have recognized that citizenship has always carried a deeper meaning than a mere physical location at birth. Plain intent, common sense understanding, practical reality, those guardrails were right there. Thomas and Alito saw them, the others did not. But no, the other justices gave the two-handed shove right in the back. To be honest, this isn't some one-off occurrence. We've watched the court do this way too often for my taste, calling Obamacare a mandate tax, calling the Obamacare mandated tax, redefining marriage nationwide in Obergefell, inventing constitutional right for abortion in Roe. Time after time, with the help of Republican-nominated justices, they bypassed the narrower grounded readings in favor of a result that reshapes society. Here's the serious explanation. We have handed far too much power to 9 unelected lawyers in robes. The legislative and executive branches let them do it. Congress and presidents from both parties have repeatedly abdicated their responsibility, passing vague laws, dodging hard political fights, governing by executive order, and then cheering or quietly accepting when the court steps in to legislate from the bench or the deep state issues some ruling. They've all participated in this slow transfer of power. That's how we ended up here. 9 unelected justices deciding fundamental questions about who belongs in the country and how we conduct our elections. Every time they shove, our institutions become weaker, not stronger, because they do not face the judgment of the voter. And now we're supposed to pretend this is normal, that democracy is stronger because 9 people in Washington spoke on the rules of citizenship and voting. All they did was cause more harm. They actually turned the reasoning of the 14th Amendment upside down. Continued chaos solves nothing but furthering the fall. The question is now is how far we fall before we demand better, before we demand the courts interpret instead of making it. Congress must tighten the meaning of subject to the jurisdiction thereof by law and put trust back in the election process. When you cede America's borders and the manner of its elections, you may have finally delivered the fatal shove, because gravity's strong pull often ends with something broken beyond repair. Dustin, do you find it ironic that on the week of our 250th birthday that we received this citizenship ruling? Is that karma coming back?
Well, I think that the court certainly waited the last week of their session to rule on something that Trump did the first day he was in office. So that's kind of the way the system works. Ultimately, from a functionality standpoint, all the court did was confirm the status quo of how the 14th Amendment has been interpreted for the last 150 years.
Can I stop there? Can I stop you there?
Yeah.
So that's their excuse, right? We've been using that, and we used Roe v. Wade for 50 years. It also got overturned, right? Mm-hmm. So they had that ability to do that this time.
Well, the word conservative itself comes to mind here because, you know, there's the conservative agenda and then there's the conservative decision. So traditionally, you know, if you looked at the British meaning of the word conservative, it's to sustain the status quo, right? To keep things the way that they are. And so from that aspect, the court was conservative. From the way that conservatives, with an S, as a group, think, it was not. You know, there's a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump and they plugged their nose because they thought, well, at least his judges that he appoints will be good. And 3 of these judges were appointed under the first administration of Trump at the recommendation of the Federalist Society. And so I think the question that people have to raise is, who are they listening to? Who, you know, the Federalist Society is supposed to be the conservative legal entity, right? Like, they have a pretty good reputation traditionally. But, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean that the judges that are going to be appointed are going to flip the entire situation on its head. You know, comparing this to Roe v. Wade, I'm not sure is apples to apples because, you know, Roe v. Wade was a Supreme Court decision, and this Supreme Court said that the previous Supreme Court used faulty logic to get to that point, which was a different point that it had been in the past. Now they are confirming that previous Supreme Courts were accurate on this particular piece, and that the way that the country has been promoting this is accurate. You know, even Neil Gorsuch, I believe it was, said, well, the issue here is the law, and you have to change the law. And Congress passed the law, and the law is not necessarily unconstitutional. And so, in essence, to ask the Supreme Court to do anything different than it did on this is to be promoting activism. You want activist judges on this particular issue to change what Congress passed in, you know, last 50 years, as well as what the Constitution has been interpreted for the last 150 years. So when you're not consistent upon when you want activism to happen and when you don't, you're going to get results that you don't like because there's no consistency in what you're expecting. And so if a truly conservative court would say, here is why you can't do what you're doing under the Constitution, and here's what you need to do to change it, conservatives would then go out and change it rather than complaining about what the court ruled. And I think that the reason that the court has taken so much power, and this goes back to 1803, you know, the Supreme Court declared itself to be the ultimate arbiter of constitutionality in 1803 in Marbury versus Madison. That was not in the Constitution. They gave themselves the power. But the people that wrote the Constitution were still alive, and they did not object to it. So they let it happen. And so, yes, they have taken this power just as much as the Congress has abdicated its power to both the judiciary and the executive. Congress is really the problem because Congress is the one that actively gave away its power. You know, you can complain about the executive and judiciary taking their own power and enhancing their own power, but at the end of the day, Congress gave them the ability to do that by not exercising it. When they punt on an issue and they leave it to the courts, they can't complain about what the courts say, right?
And that gets back to the previous segment. That keeps them in their job a lot longer when they have no responsibility for anything.
Right.
So let's use, I mean, it's just asinine to me. You can use the Senator Jacob Howard's quote from text from May 30th, 1866. He says, it's not for a foreigner stepping on. We didn't give Indian citizenship, and they were born here. So let's carry this further, Dustin. So now you just have to be born here. So do you think the Supreme Court would allow us to stand at the border and have pregnancy tests? then to protect our border, but they would not allow that, right? We both agree. No chance in hell would they allow us to have pregnancy tests at our border, but they're going to allow you to have a baby on our border, and that becomes a citizen. Do you see over the long haul how this destroys a country? The man said when he wrote the amendment, it was not intended for that purpose. We may have acted falsely for 100 damn years, but then let's correct the mistake. We did that in Roe.
So this is where the problem comes in. Conservatives have promoted two things in the legal world: strict constructionism and textualism. Like Antonin Scalia was a textualist. That was what we were told these judges that Trump appointed were textualists, which means you don't look at the intent of the author of the bill or the amendment. You look at the words in the amendment, what it says. And so now we don't like that on this particular issue.
But we have the man's testimony.
But under strict construction and textualism, the testimony is not the text. And so you're picking and choosing what you're using. You want people to be one thing and then telling them to do the other. That doesn't work that way.
You're a Supreme Court justice, but in Perry's mind, you're still a moron. It may be possible. You can be both. Folks, I appreciate you watching tonight. We'll be back next week with Open Range. I'm Perry Schumacher. Dustin, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. Join me on the trip and unearth the stories on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations of American citizens like our forefathers did.
$27,000 in credit card debt.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Come on in and experience small-town hospitality and the personalized care that makes car buying a pleasure.
We know that every journey starts with the right car. Whether it's school drop-off, weekend road trips, or your daily commute, we have the right vehicle for you and your family.
With trusted brands, affordable prices, and a team that treats you like family, finding your next car has never been so easy.
We pride ourselves on personal attention and quality service. The Set Motors, where our customers send their friends.
Hello, friends. This is Culture Crossroads. Join me, Andrew Southbridge, and my co-hosts, R.C. Williams and Juliana Ormond, as we tackle the issues shaping America. From politics to pop culture, to faith, freedom, family, and the future. From a faith-based conservative perspective that you won't get anywhere else. We stand at the intersection of faith and freedom. This is Culture Crossroads. Culture Crossroads, Sundays at 5 p.m. Central on BEK TV.
Hi, I'm Scott Hennon, host of the What's on Your Mind program on BEK TV now. From Baker, Montana to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and everywhere in between. We're looking forward to having a conversation with you about what matters most. We're talking to newsmakers, from members of Congress to the state legislature, and most importantly, the good folks that make up the great state of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. Every single day, you get a chance to tell us what's on your mind. And now you can watch What's on Your Mind live on BEK TV.
Welcome to Arrowhead Cleaners. Newly renovated, modernized, and ready to make your cleaning needs hassle-free. From commercial and residential wash and fold laundry services to the latest in professional dry cleaning techniques, we are dedicated to your unique needs, offering alterations, fabrications, and even custom hat making. So whether you're a busy professional, a family on the go, or even a rodeo champion, Arrowhead Cleaners is here to take your things from messed up to dressed up. Now celebrating our 64th year in Arrowhead Plaza.